All right. Welcome to the Minds of Ecommerce Podcast, where you'll learn one key strategy that made leading e-commerce companies grow exponentially. I'm Raphael Paulin-Daigle, your host, and today we have Suzie Cyrenne, who's the co-founder of Zumalka and Buster Fetcher. We're going to talk about how she's used SEO to bring significant growth to her businesses. And I'm super excited to have her here. So without further ado, Suzie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm super grateful to be here, Raphael.
Of course. Now, obviously, in this episode or in this podcast, I should say, we try to be as actionable as possible, cut to the chase, and really dive as deep as possible within 15 to 20 minutes. And you've mentioned SEO, but before we actually dive into SEO, I'd love for you to tell us a bit more about your e-commerce business specifically, so Zumalka, and just maybe give us a couple of highlights of how you've grown the brand and what's the brand about, based on the last couple of years.
Absolutely. So my background is totally different. I used to be a dental hygienist, so nothing to do with e-commerce, but I was just looking for a completely new challenge. And my husband had been in the e-commerce space for a couple of years, making websites. So we just decided to build our own thing and give it a try. I still loved everything around health. We had this wonderful opportunity of creating a website around an e-commerce store around natural products and remedies for pets. So that's what we decided to do. It was fun. It was a whole new adventure, but up to today, 10 years later, we still have that brand. We love it. And we're just serving mostly, I'd say, US-based customers. So it's been very exciting.
Amazing. Before we started recording this, you mentioned that SEO is important for you for a couple of reasons, but I'll let you tell the audience. Why was SEO important to you and to your business when I think a lot of the brands we're seeing today, they're really only thinking about paid ads and they're overly reliant possibly on Facebook ads and Google ads. So, and you mentioned that was a motivating factor for you guys to explore different things. So tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely, I think a lot of people, and I was there too, we put a lot of money down that paid ads funnel and it works. It works to a certain extent. And I still do paid ads to today. But I find it over the years, it's just been so unstable. You're just so dependent and relying on whatever they decide. And it's been like that since the beginning. So I feel like consistent content creation is the key to success. And more than ever, today, 2023, brands are just putting so much more emphasis on content. And that's definitely a great foundation to have, much more solid. So from the beginning, we decided to put a lot of efforts in content. We put a break on that for a while, but decided that no, we really need to work on our content. The only thing, it doesn't pay off right away. I think that's one thing that kind of makes us lose our motivation to actually do the work. It's a lot of work before you see results, but if you're consistent, it'll eventually pay off. So that's definitely why we decided that Google SEO, you can't really go wrong with that. You just need to work your way through it and be on top of trends. And yeah, it works out pretty well if you're consistent.
Perfect. Yeah. And we'll dive into your playbook in just a couple seconds. But, you're talking about a payoff. What type of payoff, are you getting based on what you're able to tell us? Just so people know, not every business is the same. So not everybody should expect the same results. But what type of payoff have you seen from that?
So usually when we put a lot of effort into SEO on a weekly basis, eventually it pays off in traffic. It pays off in sales. The traffic that comes to you is definitely high quality. And we've seen several times, almost like overnight in a month or so, our traffic doubled or sales doubled. But you can't really know when that all happens. So you just have to put the work and eventually you'll see a dramatic increase in your traffic and sales. So that's the payoff we're talking about.
Awesome. And how long did it take for you guys to reach that payoff moment from when you started to really seeing it get some traction?
I feel that a good rule of thumb is 6 months approximately. So it takes a while, but usually, about 6 months, more or less. It's different for every website industry and depending on the year you're in, but yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. So you're talking about, obviously, SEO through content creation. Let's dive deeper. So what's the first step? What's the first headline ultimately, what's the strategy about? What do you do? Do you just create any piece of content? Are there specific types of piece of content that you create?
So my SEO approach revolves around creating unique and quality content, but more specifically creating guides around expert advice. So the first time we actually discovered this strategy, maybe a little backstory, when we first started to get into the SEO, we had no clue what we were doing. So first thing we did was hire an SEO specialist. We put all our eggs in one basket and we just hoped that it would work. But that was a total fail. That person was just not the right person. And that's the thing. We only knew a couple months later it didn't do well. So we decided to hire an agency. We thought maybe that we would have a little bit more control over that. And it worked out okay. But we decided at the same time, eventually, when we saw those results, to just take matter in our own hands and try to find our own recipe. And that's what we did. So that brought me to create an ultimate guide, or first ultimate guide. At the time, it was called the Ultimate Guide to Pet Adoption. I wanted to adopt a dog and I had no clue how to do it. And I was looking online. I'm like, there's not enough information. There's just like not a complete one place to go to. So to find that knowledge and information. So I thought, hey, let's create it. We're in the pet industry. I think it's going to serve a lot of our customers at the same time, and it'll be useful for me. That's what we did. And that's what when we started to discover our little recipe, which was nowhere to be found, right? So what we did is we outreach to as many rescues and shelters that we could in the US and Canada, as many as possible. Once we found all those people to reach out to, we send them an email and we ask them for an interview. We asked to interview them through email, not a Zoom interview. That would have been way too long, because I think we got about, at the time, maybe 200 people who replied with a yes.
Wow.
I'm okay to interview you. Yeah, so it was a lot of people. So we're glad we did that by email, because it saved us time. But not only that, it just allowed us to actually have it in written to actually quote the experts. So that brought a lot of credibility for our guides and articles. So we did that. And in exchange, we offered them to link back to their website. So that would provide them some good backlinks. And as a bonus, we featured them as an expert. Not only was that good quality content for us, but it was also a lot of shares for us in the end, because once we created the content and we just invited them to share it with their audience, their own clients, customers, and they happily did. And their audience too shared the content as well. So it was almost like infinite. And so that was good. It was really good strategy. So that's when we really, circling back. So in the end, we discovered that when you collect diverse voices, expert advice, expert voices, Google will value the originality of your content. Google will appreciate the tone, the style, ideas within the content. So definitely that was a winning strategy. So I think that was the first thing I could say.
And Suzie, so it sounds like that first topic on adoption, that really just came out of a need. But I'm sure that, as you guys went on to create more guides, maybe there was a bit more of a strategy involved in finding the topic. So I guess my question is, how do you decide what to write about? Because obviously it's a lot of effort to build such guides. Yeah, how do you pick your topics?
That's such a great question. So we try to interview our customers once in a while, survey them. So we know that way what are their main interests. We make sure before we take a decision, we always look back to our avatars and just make sure we always create content towards our personas. So, but mostly interviewing them, because I feel that as we grow as a company, our customers' needs will grow as well, or their interests. The foundation stays the same, but trends are different. And for example, raw food is like a big thing. So when eventually we discovered that people want to know more about like raw feeding your pet, so we did a guide on that. So that's definitely something we always try to go back to our customers, because in the end, the information is for them first.
Awesome. I love that you mentioned that, because I was totally expecting an answer like, oh, we look at like href and things like that, and we have this tool and this tool, which I'm sure is an important part of the process. But, I've always been a pretty loud voice when it comes to saying how important it is to talk to your customers, because if I look at the work that we do at Splitbase, where we build landing pages for e-commerce brands, or we do conversion optimization, our approach at Testing Trifecta has always been about understanding the customer's pain points, needs, and motivations to understand what needs to be optimized on a website or what needs to be written on a landing page. And those are things that Google Analytics or any tool with metrics can't tell you, because your customers are human beings, and numbers are numbers. So hearing that, you value that and that's how you come up with topics, I actually think is super smart and pretty exciting, because it aligns exactly with how we see things as well. Now, so Suzie, how many guides do you create? Like, what's the cadence? Is it every month? Is it every quarter? I mean, it sounds like it takes quite a bit of effort, right? So what's the frequency for that?
We don't have like a specific time frame for creating guides. Usually what we do, we create a guide, and then because once your guide is created, that's just maybe 20%. Then you have to outreach, and there's so much marketing you can do around it. So depending on the industry and topic we're doing, we'll make sure that we do the marketing to an extent that we're satisfied, and then we feel like moving on is a good idea. So that's what we do. But I'm not going to lie, we do change sometimes. Like recently, we've decided to update all of our blog articles, which is definitely super important too. So it depends. You need to sometimes travel or switch between projects. But in the end, I mean, what I'm saying today is definitely something that will stick with us, because it has worked for us for so long. But I think it's not about the amount of guides you create. It's really around making sure you create good quality and you market properly the content.
Quality over quantity. I love that you mention outreach. Writing and creating the content is only a small part of the actual process, right? So this is super important, because I think a lot of brands sometimes, and I've been victim of that myself in the past as well, where we spend a lot of time creating that content and then we publish it and then we move on without really milking everything we can milk out of something that we just published. So when you talk about outreach, Suzie, what exactly are you doing? Are you just reaching out to those experts? Are you doing more? Love to know a bit about that.
We do a lot of things. One thing I know we do that has worked a lot for us is, for example, we'll take a look at the experts' backlinks and see, are there any broken links or their competitors? Maybe we'll take a look and see if they have any broken links, and then check. And if they do, let's say 404 pages or anything like that, we'll just at that time outreach to them and offer to replace that broken link with our good content, of which will be of significant importance for their audience. So that's one thing we do. But when you go into the backlinking world of your competitors or the experts that we interviewed, you find like a whole web of people you can outreach to, and that is infinite. And there are a lot of strategies you can go around to outreach to them. But I would say that a lot of our strategies for a while was around broken links and finding their competitors and actually offering for them to post or share our content to their audience. And that worked for a long time, actually.
Awesome. Super interesting. Well, this episode and this podcast is brought to you by SplitBase, a conversion optimization and landing page agency for e-commerce brands. And obviously, since I'm the CEO of SplitBase, well, I will ask a question about conversion optimization. So I'd love to know, Suzie, what I see, pretty often is sometimes we have brands that get a lot of traffic to their blog, but that traffic is not converting. And if you have a lot of traffic, but no one's buying, what's that traffic worth, right? So how do you get your blog readers to turn into actual customers?
That is such a great question. And I think that's all of our challenge at some point. So what we do is, first of all, we make sure that whatever we post is something that's relevant. We don't just do blog articles to create content. We make sure that it's relevant to our customers' wants and needs. And if we're going to add some links in there towards our products, we make sure that, of course, we're just not just dropping a bunch of links. We make sure they're high quality. Right now, just recently, we actually were having a little bit of that issue. What we did, we hired an SEO specialist and who did a SEO audit, and now we worked on our SEO. It's an ongoing thing. And then we're just actually now working on we just had a CRO audit done, and we're just, optimizing that part for ourselves, because what worked 5 years ago doesn't work anymore necessarily. So I think it's something you just have to do on an ongoing basis. So to answer your question, as of today, we're just having a CRO audit done right now. And we're actually really excited to see what our specialist has to offer to us. And because at some point when you're a CEO or taking care of your company, all the technicalities, eventually the trends, we're just not on top anymore. So I think it's super important to go towards the experts and hire them, because I'm not an expert at everything in e-commerce. I'm not going to say that. That would be untrue. So I think at a certain point, we just have so much to manage that we just have to go to where the experts. So yeah, that's what we do right now. Hire experts to tell us where we need to work on in the end.
And that's a smart move. I think this is a type of thing, right, where there are definitely some best practices around that, but ultimately everything is different for every business. Ultimately, the next move, right, for maybe your business or anyone who's listening to this, who's going through something similar, right, you're going to have to try and test a lot of things. With some brands, when we're looking at how do we get blog to convert better, well, some blog content doesn't do well when you actually have a bunch of ads about your products in the blog post, because people don't want to buy. They come there for your content, right? So sometimes it's about being a little more sneaky about it. And by that meaning, just hyperlinking casual mentions of your products here and there. Sometimes it's just better to get them to sign up for a newsletter to capture their leads, right? So I encourage anyone who's listening to this, right, do experiment with how you get blog readers to convert, because there's no one way of doing it, and what might work for one brand might not work for yours. Suzie, we're almost out of time, but one question I definitely want to ask, because I'm always curious, is you've been growing this business for a little while now. What are maybe 3 tools or services that you love and have used, for you to be where you are today?
Tools and services. I'm going to say one of the tools that really has helped us was to, at the beginning, especially when you create an e-commerce, or even if you're rebranding your website, there's a website called usertesting.com. I used that a while back. Hotjar. I mean, they're basic tools, but when there's an issue and you don't know where to go back to your basics, ask your customers, interview them. So Hotjar, we always go back to that. Usertesting.com was really, really good for us. And services, I would say we love to hire in-house now as much as possible. So talking about services, if you're going to hire people, specialists, we love to hire people from Philippines. So there's this wonderful website called onlinejobs.ph, which I love. And I found such great quality people there too. And for a marketing team, to be honest, they're one of the best we've had so far. So that's definitely a place I go to, and I still do when we need talent, when we're trying to keep things lean, but still get good quality of work. And let me think about this one. I'm just trying. This is a little.
How about a plug to Buster Fetcher?
Oh, that's true. That's true. We can do that. Well, if you are looking to save on and lower your shipping costs, which I think as an e-commerce is one of the things we're trying to do as best as we can. Shipping costs always go up. So Buster Fetcher, what we do is we help businesses lower their shipping costs without even changing carriers, or it takes 5 minutes. You don't have to change it. We just analyze, audit, and tell you where you have savings that are waiting for you. So we use the platform for ourselves, and it's been so helpful. Love it.
Amazing. So Suzie, if people want to learn more about you or your companies, where should they go? Where should they find you?
Zumalka.com, that's our e-commerce. BusterFetcher.com is our other business. And Women Power E-commerce, podcast for women in the e-commerce space.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Suzie, for your time. It was a pleasure chatting with you. Really love this conversation. For anyone who's listening, if you're looking for similar episodes where we talk about how to better understand your customer, listen to episode number 23 with Ben Smith of Disco, where we talk about utilizing customer insights. And if you want to talk about freelancers, because Suzie did say that she loves leveraging freelancers, episode 22 with Chris Mead of CrossNet actually goes in depth with how, they've been able to scale using freelancers instead of full-time employees. So thank you so much, everyone. Suzie, thanks for being here. I'm Raphael Paulin-Daigle, founder and CEO of Splitface. If you need help with landing pages to reduce your customer acquisition costs, or need help with optimizing your website for conversion, go to splitbase.com and we'll be able to help you out. Thank you so much.